the best thing that you can do is surrender the outcomes and the results of things. Of course, we have visions and goals that we want to work towards, but I would just say be okay with putting one foot in front of the other and just immersing yourself in the process and making it less about what you can gain, but more about what you can give to those around you. And, your journey's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to look like somebody else's recovery or somebody else's career, but just find the simple joys and the gratitude in your journey.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment, seeing a therapist, and going to 12-step meetings. Those things are important, and AA saved my life. However, to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, there's a lot more to it than just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, or stopping any addictive behavior for that matter. To live a new life, a person needs to learn new, healthy lifestyle habits. And those are the types of things that we talk about here on this show. We talk about addiction treatment, recovery, 12 steps, and we bring guests on the show that have gone through recovery and have made it out the other side. And today I'm here with Las Vegas Raiders' Darren Waller to talk about his struggles with addiction along with his comeback story. Darren Waller was born in Landover, Maryland, and raised in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. He was involved in a lot as a kid, including football, basketball, baseball, tennis, band. I wouldn't take you as a band person, but okay. He graduated from North Cobb High School in 2011 and earned a business degree from Georgia Tech in 2014. Drafted by the Baltimore Ravens as a wide receiver in the 6th round of the 2015 NFL Draft. Went from being arrested 3 times, suspended multiple times in college and the NFL, which included a 1-year-long ban in 2017. He got cut. He went to rehab, and after that, got a job working at Sprouts, the grocery store. Then he was back on the practice field, and that led to back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, the Pro Bowl, and an all-time single-season record holder for receptions in a season in Raiders history. I'm so grateful and excited to have Darren here with me on the show today and to hear his comeback story. We're going to talk about his journey to find recovery, how he found peace, his purpose in life, and how his messy life became his message. Darren, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. I think this is amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. And shout out to Donnie Starkins. Donnie Starkins is a really good friend of mine, and Donnie introduced us, and so he thought we might be a good fit. So yeah, we're here. I'm super excited because I know a lot of people out there are excited to hear your story. What happened? And so first, tell me what it was like for you growing up as a kid in Maryland, or you grew up in Maryland, you grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Tell me what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah, so I was born in Maryland, but when I was a baby, we moved to Colorado for a couple of years. But all I remember is growing up in Georgia. We got there when I was like 5 years old.
Okay.
But growing up there for me was, it was great, like on paper and everything. It was, I had both my parents. They're still together to this day.
Okay.
In a great neighborhood. I had an older sister. Never experienced any kind of violence or trauma or, negativity from my parents. They were always encouraging and challenging us to be great without, being overbearing or anything like that. They let us try new things and experiment. And, I went to good schools and things like that. But, the things that was tough for me was I started going out and hanging out with the kids in my neighborhood just because they were doing the things I like to do, but they all happened to be white, but they were just my friends because they were cool and I liked hanging out with them. But
okay, so so let me stop. So you didn't grow up in a broken household. You didn't grow up homeless. You didn't grow up halfway on the street. Like you grew up in a a normal household. Your parents are still married,
right.
And you had one sibling?
Yes, I had an older sister.
Older sister. So you grew up in a good family, and then and then you started hanging out with the wrong. Like tell me what happened from there.
So yeah, these were like great kids in my neighborhood that I was hanging out with, and the thing that came from it was, all the kids that looked like me, like other black kids like me were, I started used to get made fun of for. They would tell me like I wasn't black enough, and that I was basically white, and those things like really hurt me from early on, like elementary school. And it just made me think like that something was wrong with me by the way that I acted or the people that I associated with. And so from then on, it just became tough for me to view myself without thinking something was wrong with me. And that carried on up into middle school. And you see like the guys that were popular with the girls and, everyone wanted to hang around them, be around them. They were like the complete opposite of me. They were like, loud and, real like bravado type, just trying to, be cool and, impose their will. Whereas me, like I was quiet, I was sensitive. I cared a lot about what people thought. And so I felt like I had to be like those guys and be the complete opposite of me in order to be accepted. So I didn't know the underlying messages.
When did you first realize that you were being treated differently? Like by other people that's traumatic. Like you grow up and then you have other kids that, look like you, quote unquote. Right. And they were making fun of you and telling you that you weren't black enough and that you were too white.
Right.
That's traumatic.
Yeah. That was the end of elementary school. Honestly, in the beginning of middle school so it was that early, like 9, 10, 11 years old was when I was already feeling that and like feeling like hurt by it.
Yeah. Well, and they say all addiction stems from trauma. And I can only imagine how you must have felt as a 9-year-old kid, as a 10-year-old kid, and being made fun of like that.
Yeah, because I carried that mindset all the way through college. I mean, even into the NFL, I still felt myself having to do like these outlandish things to impress other people or to be accepted by other people. And it's like, when after doing the work, I traced it all the way back to when I was little and the pain that, I felt from that. I still was trying to overcompensate for, almost 20 years down the road.
Right. Okay. So when did you first start experimenting with drugs? So sports. So you clearly played sports from a very young age.
Right.
Were you always one of the top players on any of the teams that you ever played?
So I was like really good out of the gate. Like when I started when I was like 4 and I was just like naturally good at it, or all the sports that I played. And, that continued all the way through, I would say like into middle school. And then once we hit high school, people started growing a lot faster than I did. I wasn't always bigger than everyone else. There was 9th grade and 10th grade year, I was the smallest person on every team that I played on.
Okay.
And so these guys were getting bigger and hitting the weights. And so I was riding the bench. I was riding the bench on the football team my freshman year. And and when I did like get out there or whatever, I would get hurt because I was just like, kind of frail, honestly, and just physically. And so I had a lot of injuries and people would make fun of me because there was like, I always had a cast on or, I wasn't built for this. And I had a coach tell me I should play a non-contact sport because, I just couldn't stay healthy and I was really small. So that was 9th and 10th grade year. And, at that time it was like, I was already feeling down about myself and I knew like being in the South, that if I played football and was good at football, that would be my way to impress people and that they would accept me.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that football wasn't going well, or other sports really for that matter, it was like, dang, I don't feel like I have anything else to offer. I don't have anything else to get these people to like me or, approve of me. And so that around that time when I was 15, my sophomore year, I remember I had friends, I was over at their house and they were just like, they pulled some pills out of their parents' medicine cabinet. They were like, try this. It'll make you feel good. I just remember at that time, it was just like, I remember I was like, oh, I'm not going to drink or do drugs and things like that. But at that time, I was like, well, I don't feel good. I would like to feel good. And so I tried it. And like from that time, it was just like, I knew that that was what I wanted to do, or that was how I wanted to feel. And, it started from there. I probably started smoking and drinking when I was 16. And then, but the
Right.
pills
And it's to your point, it's a solution to the pain.
Right.
You just wanted to feel better.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And then
go ahead.
Going from there, it was like, it started like once every now and then with the pills, and then it was like every weekend. And then it was like, during the week a couple days because I was good in school and I had like a high GPA, so I could kind of do these things and get away with it without it hurting my performance. And as I continued to do that, it became like, almost every other day, really. And then at that time, it was weird because once I started doing drugs, it was like my life got better in a weird way. It was like I started growing. And then with growing, there was like, became a spot on the football team and the basketball team. And with, being like a main player on those teams, it was like now people wanted to be my friend and girls wanted to hang around me. And it's like, I was thinking, oh, all this started because I started doing drugs. And it was like doing the drugs, it eased my anxiety and made me feel calmer. But it also put me in friend groups that I wanted to be in with cool people. And so it was like, oh man, this is just making my life so much better ever since I started doing drugs. So it's like, I'm never going to give this up. Already within like 17 years old, I'm like, this is just how I'm going to live life.
Now, when you said that you had a bunch of injuries and were you not playing sports for a couple of years or did you take a break?
So
you around 15, 16 years old? So
when I was 15, like my second year, I had a lingering elbow injury from baseball. And then I played like one or two games of football and it just made my elbow like that much worse. I had to have surgery on it. So I was out for like, I want to say around 9 months. Like it was like, I was out for like a good amount of time from that injury. And so it just it was just like, I didn't have much to do. And that's kind of what led me around that crowd and got me into, experimenting with drugs. But yeah, I was out and it was just like, I had a cast on for a long time, a sling, this like, thing on my elbow. And it was just like, I just felt so down about myself at that time.
Okay. And then you started experimenting with drugs and then when were you cleared to get back on the field and start playing again?
This was like the spring and summer right before going into my junior season. And in that time, I hit like a crazy growth spurt. I went from like 5'9" to like 6'2" over the summer.
Wow.
And so I came back, and then that's just what made things different. It gave me opportunities. Like they just saw me and like, my new stature, and the coaches wanted to put me in and things like that. And then I started lifting. By the time I got healthy again, I was so like fed up with people saying I was weak and frail that, I went to one of the strength coaches that was there, and he like helped me with all my form and was just like pushing me. And so I was getting stronger and was able to, handle the beating of playing football and then like multiple sports on top of that. So by that time, I was ready. And at the time, the drugs were my friend. It was like the anxiety was subsiding like long enough for me to go out there and perform and not care about what people thought, or so I thought at the time. Right. And so I just thought that I had the recipe for success at that point.
Right.
no one was gonna like stop me or anything. But then I also remember like my junior year, I got kicked off the I got kicked off the basketball team. That was like one of the first consequences from like using and stuff, because there was a situation where, I was like high at the time, but there are these guys on my football team that wanted to go like throw rocks and bust people's windows out. And I was like, oh, I'll drive for y'all, just to like, cause I wanted to be a part of that. And they just looked at me like, oh, he's cool. He was the getaway driver. And, it was in the neighborhood next to my parents' neighborhood, which is a great plan of action. And so like while they were doing it, I was just like in the street, like waiting. And somebody like got my license plate and like gave it to the police. And then I just remember coming home one day from basketball practice. My parents were like, yeah, the police came by today looking for you. And they're like, you need to go like turn yourself in and stuff. And I was just like, dang. But at the time, it was like, I remember I was like, dang at first, but then after that, it was like, oh, people are going to think I'm cool for getting arrested. And it was just like, I already was like not even considering that drugs or alcohol was the problem. It was like, there was some kind of credibility that I was going to get from it. And I didn't know at that time. I was already starting to rationalize my actions and my habits so early. And that could have risked, going to college and things like that, but eventually got swept under the rug. But it cost my parents a lot of money, it cost my parents a lot of like disappointment. And that was just the beginning of all that kind of stuff.
I can totally relate. And as a high school kid, even younger than that, I got in lots of trouble as well. And I think it goes with the territory. It's like the alcoholic behavior, right? The lying, cheating, stealing starts even before the crazy addiction progresses and gets to its worst point, right? Yeah. And what I'm hearing is that you were basically a chameleon. You were an athlete, you got good grades, you were in the band, right?
I was in the middle school band, but I quit because I was lame when I got to high school.
Okay. So you did, so you were an athlete, you were in the band, you were smart in school, you were getting good grades, you were getting in fights, you were getting in trouble. I mean, you had probably so many different groups of friends, and you could just change on a dime, and you could fit in wherever you wanted to.
Yeah, that is very true. And it was like I had a different mask for every time I was around all of those groups. I was, trying to be tougher when I was around, athletes or guys that, were getting in trouble a lot. But then when I was around, there were certain classes and like AP classes and advanced classes where, I was the only person that looked like me in there. So I was like, oh, I had to like get my stuff together while I'm in there. I can't be, I can't slip at all. So I had to have my perfectionist mask on in there. And it's like, I can't do any wrong there.
Yeah.
It's just, everywhere I went, it was just got exhausting so early on.
It's taxing.
Yeah. But I felt like it was something that I had to do.
Yeah. I mean, once you get used to it, just like anything, right? You build up a tolerance, you build up stamina. So switching, putting on a different mask, depending upon who you're spending time with, becomes something that you just do.
Exactly. Yeah. And it became, my main mechanism of coping and just navigating life for, probably the next 10 years.
So do you think that as you were growing up, were you ever authentic, or did you always have a mask on?
If I was authentic, I think it was rare. It came out at times. There are people that, I still know from that time that were like, they saw flashes of the real me because they could still, see some of it in me now today. But I think it was, few and far in between, because I just got so caught up in being like the stage character everywhere I went. And I just because I didn't feel like who I was enough. I feel like at some point who I was going to get exposed, laughed at, talked about. And I couldn't deal with that. Like anything people would say about me or the potential of what they could say about me crushed me to the point where I was just like, nope, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and just keep blending in.
Yeah, man, that's so tough. I mean, you're 9 or 10 years old, because it sounds like you grew up, but you were a sensitive kid, you were a good kid, you were a quiet kid, and then you just got crushed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just, and from that, it was just like, just like the definitions of, what a man should be. I just kind of, internally, I guess I kind of felt like my qualities were like feminine in a way. Like
Okay.
I felt like I wasn't, what a man should be. So it was like, okay, I have to do everything different. I basically can't be me. I basically have to, be somebody else. And those were seeds that I was planting that, I thought I could just get out of in a quick amount of time, but it took, work, and it's still taking work to get out of those mindsets.
Yeah. Okay, so you graduate from high school and you end up at Georgia Tech. How did that transpire? When did you realize that you wanted to really focus on sports? And when did you realize you wanted to be a professional athlete?
Um, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't even know if I truly wanted to play sports after high school.
Okay.
I feel like I got so entrenched in the trying to upkeep the image of being an athlete, and I finally got that, and I thought that was what I wanted, but it caused so much more anxiety because I feel like I had to please so many people and represent, where I was from. And, I just didn't love football like that. I loved the, the results of football and what that gave me and the status that gave me around people, because I was just seeking that from when I was younger. But yeah, I didn't have dreams of being a professional athlete. Like, I was enamored by the NFL and, like, classic films and stuff like that of those guys, but I never thought that I could get there. And, I didn't really have, a lot of scholarship offers. I had a few, and even, Georgia Tech, in a way forced, my hand. I remember the camp, the coach was like, if you don't commit today, like, we'll just take your scholarship and give it to somebody else. And I was just like, oh, well, I need to just commit today, because I was like one of the lowest rated recruits in the recruiting class. So it was just like, but I didn't have those big dreams. I just felt like, I had to continue on that path, because at some point I'll be happy with it. Like, it was like the success formula. It was like, oh, I'm an athlete, and, women are going to be after me, or I can make money, and, then I'll be happy. But it was just like I was prescribing to somebody else's definition of happiness, and not mine. I was expecting these external results to make me feel good on the inside, but it was, I was going about it the opposite way.
Yeah, you were seeking fulfillment, and it wasn't happening.
No, not at all.
Okay, so you end up at Georgia Tech. And what was it like being in college?
From the moment that I stepped on campus, it was just like, I have to prove myself here. And at that time, I was already like well into my addiction, and as far as like how much I was drinking, how much I was using. And as soon as I stepped on campus, I remember, like, within like 30 minutes of my parents leaving the dorm room when I first moved in, there were like older players that were in the dorm, and they like kicked our door in and were like coming with liquor bottles and stuff like that. And they were like, who, like, freshmen, y'all gotta like basically like represent, or like, show that you're tough or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is like the perfect entry point for me right here. I just go out there and I'm like, I just put myself out there. And from there on, I just, go wherever they go, and, meet all these people at like frat parties, or wherever we go, if you go out to bars and stuff like that. And it's just like, everywhere I go, it's a proving ground. It's like, I'm going to out drink people. I'm going to out pop, out snort, out anything people. Because I know they'll accept me for that. I know people love the, football player that parties, and the football player that's out there and, chasing women and stuff like that. So it was just that, like, 5-6 days out the week. like from Jump Street as soon as I got on campus. And it was like football basically took a back seat because I felt like that young freshman, sophomore again. When I was back in high school, I was like, well, I was the lowest rated recruit. I'm not going to play, really. I'm just here, getting an education. So while I'm here, I'm going to have fun and I'm just going to, go crazy. So it was like football wasn't really a priority. I was just kind of going through the motions there and started going through the motions with school because school just wasn't a priority because my using and became such a priority. It was like every single moment of the day that I had opportunity to use, I was using. So everything else kind of suffered.
What was your drug of choice?
It was, oxys, like Percocets first, alcohol, weed, Xanax, and cocaine.
Were you a blackout drinker?
Yes, I was blacking out like every weekend almost. If not every weekend, every other weekend.
Now, how did that affect your performance on the field?
At the time, I was like, I'm still like, I could still run fast. Like, I was still like, lifting weights and like getting stronger. But looking back, it was like, I was like, that's what was causing. I didn't feel like I was more injury prone back then. I was I couldn't go for long periods of time. Like I could make it through a day, but it was like the wear and tear of the season. Like I would just be exhausted from that. So my performance definitely suffered, and mentally the most because it was like I wasn't doing the preparation that it took to, handle that load mentally and also just like the X's and O's of things. I just wasn't on top of any of that because that takes extra time outside of the building to really hone those details. And I was spending that time, just getting lit as possible.
Right. When did you realize you had a problem with drugs and alcohol?
I would say probably my sophomore year, because it's like I just got to a point where I was trying to hide everything from everyone. And, I didn't want to be around people that weren't like me. And it was just like, I was like getting so lit. I was throwing up places and just passing out and like messing my body, like scars on my face from falling and stuff like that. And, I just like grew farther and farther away from my family and friends that I had grew up with. And so I was just like completely isolated and just like sad all the time. Just like depressed. And at that point, it was like, damn, I was like, I know something ain't right, but I would always justify it with, like I was doing something wrong. Like at some point, I'm going to be happy if I just don't mess this up. Like I just have to stay the course on what I'm doing and then I'll be happy and my life will be fulfilling at some point.
And when did you decide that you wanted to do something about it? Did you ever try to get clean and sober while you were in college?
No, I stopped for 6 months once, but that was only because, I failed a drug test and they sent me to basically like an outpatient program where I would go to for 3 nights a week for like 2 hours. And I just basically wanted to get the school and the administration off my back. So I stopped for a little while, but then, and kind of just to prove to myself, I was like, oh, I can stop at any time, like my willpower.
Right.
And I just went right back to it after those 6 months because, I just felt like I could get over on everyone and, just fool everybody.
So you white knuckled it for 6 months.
Yeah.
How did you feel during that period of time? Because that's clean and sober, not working a program.
Right.
And, there's a big difference, right? Between working a program and really digging in to the trauma. And because life is amazing. And we're going to get to that because life is a lot different today than it was the 6 months when you white knuckled it.
Right. And it's funny.
And so
it's funny because like those 6 months, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the first 6 months that I was actually clean, from my clean date now, my first 6 months I was clean and sober, but I was like very like envious, very irritable.
Mm-hmm.
Just like my defects were like flaming, and it was like I was clean and everything, but it was like, dang, I still feel like bad. Like I still don't feel great. I don't feel like anew. I don't feel like these promises. But it was like I wasn't doing any work. I was just clean, and that's like the drugs and alcohol are just a symptom, which is what I learned after that. That's not like the real problem, because if I take that away, that's great. Like I'm improving a little bit, but the real problems are still there.
Right. Okay, now let's fast forward. So you end up getting drafted in 2015, right? Okay, so when did you? At what point did you realize, hey, I really got a shot at making it to the NFL?
I would say my junior year.
Okay.
I kept getting better and better on the field as time went along in college, and people would say they're like, "Oh, you could go to the league, this, that, and the third," and I didn't really believe it because I just didn't have confidence in myself.
Okay.
And but yeah, my junior year, I was making plays in big games and stuff like that, and people were saying like, "Yeah, you can go to the league," and there would be like NFL scouts at our practices, watching like me go through drills and stuff like that. But I just didn't believe it was possible because I just didn't have that confidence. I know that it came from I'm a human being out on that field, and when I'm off the field, I'm like lying about everything and stealing stuff, and just not being a great person or the person that I can be. That's going to carry over to my performance on the field, because I can't just flip a switch and then my mentality is positive now. So, but yeah, I ended up getting drafted despite like suspensions, and probably should have been getting kicked out of school because of the test that I failed, and getting arrested again while I was there. So, but I still ended up getting drafted just because of my skill set could be, if it developed into something, it was a skill set that not a lot of people had.
Were you a hard worker on the field?
No, I didn't become a hard worker on the field until I really started working recovery. But before that, I did the bare minimum. I would go a little extra sometimes, but it was only to give off the impression that I was going the extra mile.
So you end up getting drafted, and so you're playing for the Baltimore Ravens,
Right.
And what happened in that? What was your first year like?
My first year, I mean, I remember I got there for like in the spring, you do like the OTA practices and all that, and just how exhausted I was out of the gate, just because it was like the weight of that, playing football to impress people and continue to put off this image. The weight of it just increased exponentially by getting to the NFL from where it was in high school and college, and it just wore me out. I remember I couldn't catch a cold in Alaska butt naked in those practices just because I just was psyching myself out. I was literally lining up and I was like, "Don't drop this. Oh, you're gonna drop this. You're gonna drop this." And I would like win on the route, and the ball was just like I just couldn't catch anything, and I was just like over it and just like wanted to quit. Like after 2 months of being drafted, those are like things that you don't hear. It's just like I wanted to be done that quick, but eventually like they made the team because they saw improvement in me. And when I got hurt like 7 games into my rookie season, and it was on injured reserve. And when you go on injured reserve, you're not really in the building like that. I was in the building till like noon, and then the rest of the day I was just by myself because I'm not really like a part of the team. Like I'm just do my rehab and go home. I'm not in the locker room or in the huddles or around veterans that can, pour into me. I'm just at home. And then, me in a room by myself with the mental state that I was in was not a good thing. So I was just like going out into the streets and starting to find what I could find and making relationships out there. And they were not the good kind.
Right. Now, okay, so let's back up for a second. So NFL versus high school, like how versus college, like how much more pressure, or how how much better were the players? How much faster was the ball thrown? How much harder was it? Like, were you blown away? Like, whoa, this is much more than, or was it just like a little step up? Like, how big was the step from college football up to the NFL? Like, even on the practice field?
I feel like is a little bit of both. As far as physicality, it was a big step. As far as like the mental load of the playbook and the schemes, it was a big step. But I feel like the actual playing of the game wasn't that big of a step because it was like still football at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Okay.
The players were more talented in the college level, and they hit harder and things like that. But I feel like more of the big step was in like, you really have to take care of your body. You really have to take care of your mind in order to take yourself to that next level, because everybody's good, everybody's talented at that point. But it's just like those that are, driven like intrinsically and have purpose and, are caring for themselves mentally and spiritually. Those are the ones that rise above.
Tell me about the problems in the NFL.
So towards the end of my second season, I was, really debating quitting. Like, I went to the coaching staff and was like, I don't really feel like me being here is, beneficial for my health. Like, I was finally starting to get like a little bit of clarity and being marginally honest with the coaching staff about what was going on. And, I still remember like all this time that, I just wanted that approval. And like, I went to them and I was quitting with hopes of them saying like, no, stay. But they were like, okay, like, that's okay. Just let us know your decision. And I was just like, that kind of really crushed me, as I wanted them to want me, but they were just at that point, after all the stuff that I had done, they were just like, okay, basically. And so after that, I was just like, forget this. And then I also like tore my labrum like the next game after telling them that, and just finished playing through the season through that. And I was just like, that's it. I'm just gonna put it into this myself. And I just remember the mindset of I'm gonna fail every drug test on purpose, just so the league will put me out of my misery, and so I won't look like a quitter. Like, there will be like some kind of, coolness to me, like crashing and burning off of drugs and knowing like I had potential, but I could have been something, instead of just saying I quit because I feared what people thought. I feared, what they would have said if I were to just step away from the game. And so I didn't want to have to go through what people might say about me. So I'd rather just, put my body in harm's way and almost kill myself, just so I didn't have to face what the potential of what people could say about me. And so I did that. And
was that subconscious?
Yes.
At the time?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I kind of go through the rest of, I'm rehabbing my shoulder with the team. And I was like, once my shoulder's rehabbed, I'm just like, that should be around the time where they would, suspend me for a year. And that's basically what happened. And it's funny, I remember I had to practice for like a month before I, got suspended. And so I was just like, well, if I go out there, I'm just going to go out there and play and not care about what anybody thinks. I'm just going to go out there and try to have fun, because this is going to be the last football I ever play. At the time, I'm not going to play football again. And it was just like practice, and it was hot, and there was like nobody there, and no cameras, no lights or anything like that. And at that moment, that was the most fun I had playing football since I was like a kid, because I was out there not trying to impress people. And I was like, I'm going to go out on a good note. And it was like I was playing with a sense of urgency, because I knew football wasn't promised to me after that. And then by the time the suspension got handed out, I was like, dang, I was just getting to like football. Like, I realized that I could, play free of expectations and people's opinions. I could just enjoy the game. But that suspension hit, and then I was out, and I was kind of depressed from that. So instead of getting help and turning my life around like I said I would, I kept using, and my using increased over the first 2 months of me being suspended, which, led up to the main event that made me want to change.
So tell me about the main event. Tell me about the crash and burn.
Yeah, so I was going back to Baltimore. This was August 11th, 2017. I was going to move out of my apartment just because I was suspended the whole year and didn't want to spend money on rent and stuff. I was moving back with my parents. And I got there the day before my dad got there. And, I was like, well, I'm going to get high here one last time. And went and picked up some pills and thinking that they were what I usually got. And they were like fentanyl. And, I had taken them and was pulling up to this grocery store that was right out the street from my apartment and basically right near the practice facility for the Ravens. And we were pulling in the parking lot, and then I was just about to hop out like normal. And I just couldn't get out, because if I got out, I would have like thrown up everywhere, and it just would have caused a scene. I would have like fainted probably. And I was just like, what, I'm just gonna sit in the car until, I feel a little better. And like maybe in a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes passed by. And I just remember like it was like somebody pulled like a power plug, and I just woke up and it was like nighttime, and I was like, like sweating and like cold and just out of it. And at the time I just thought it was, I just like took a nap. I was pretty high, but it was just like, just how tired and defeated I felt. The next day I was like, there had to be something more. And it was, basically like an overdose. And I feel like, like that could have been over right there for me. And that was like scary enough. Like as I processed it over the next, few hours and into the next day, I was like, I'm all right. It's been a ride and I've been trusting it, but now it's like these drugs and alcohol ain't my friend no more. Like it was my friend. It was like the key to peace and making friends and having a good time. But now it's just like, it's none of that anymore. And it scared me enough to be like, all right, I'm not in control anymore. So I thought I had control over it, but I was like, I have no control whatsoever. And, since that day I haven't used. And from there, it was like, after that, I was honest with my parents for the first time and honest with the league and stuff. And my parents kind of shared my family history with me and was basically saying like, your family has been doing the same thing, generation after generation. Are you going to continue to look at that and, act like it's not the truth and continue to do what you're doing? Or are you going to be the person that changes that? And so the overdose and then my family talking to me like that was enough for me to change and willingly go to rehab.
Wow. Sounds like you have a really caring, loving family. And that approach sounds like it was really effective and helpful.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then, so that was kind of the moment, that was the turning point for you.
Yeah, there was a little bit of, pushback on my behalf for the rehab at first.
Yeah.
But, eventually I was just like, I think I need to learn new skills and new habits and, put myself in an uncomfortable situation for once. My comfort zone isn't doing a lot for me right now. And
right.
So I went to a detox place for 4 days, and then went to rehab in Maine at this place called McLean Hospital Board and Cottage. And I had never been to Maine before, but it was one of the most beautiful places I ever been, first off. And second off, just like the rehab experience was just incredible. I remember, when we first got there, we went to a meeting like the first day, and I was just like, went in there, I was just like terrified. And just like, with like the way people were speaking and, like talking about the steps and, all the literature they were reading, I was just like, what is this place? Like, how is this even possible? First off, I was just sitting in the back, just quiet, just listening, taking it all in. And I was just like, it's going to probably take me a while before I'm in here sharing and, laughing and smiling and stuff. Because I was in there, I'm sweating. I'm just like looking around, like, I don't know what's going on. But, kept going back. just the honest sharing one-on-one with the counselors there and the other patients like me, the people like me that were there, and sharing amongst them. That was like the first time I'd ever really been honest, in my life. First time I'd ever been open and, talking about these things. And it's kind of like you feel an instant relief. Like there's still work to be done to like lay a new foundation, but just like the first couple times I shared, I was just like, wow, this is what's cool. This is what's cool to me. This is something that I want to be a part of, because I could just feel the unity inside of me, like my body, my mind, and my spirit, like, yes, keep doing this. And so just stuck with that and learning how to meditate there. It was just got a lot of tools to the point where it was like when it came to an end, I was like, I really don't even know if I want to go home. Like, I feel like safe here. I feel like here is a place where, I can continue to grow and, be safe. But I remember someone shared there, they were like, we don't learn these things to stay here. We learn these things so we can go back into the world and, impact the world in a positive way. Because we're not just meant to learn all this stuff and then keep to ourselves. We're meant to give it away. We only keep what we have by giving it away. That was the first time I heard that. And I was just like, wow, like, first off, that makes no sense. But then it kind of clicked and I was like, oh, okay. Like it's more about giving than what I can get. And so at that point, I was.
And as they say, and it's just like sober living, you should stay until you're afraid to leave.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So being in treatment, you're there, you're comfortable. And at first you probably were uncomfortable. You didn't want to be there, or a lot of people, they don't want to be there. And then you get comfortable there, and then you're afraid to leave. Right. And that's when it's time to go.
Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Because it's kind of like you said in the beginning, when you talk about getting into, growth and comfort. I don't feel like, growth and comfort I feel like they're like opposites, because when there's comfort, there's a tendency to, kind of just kick your feet up and, just kind of coast a little bit. Whereas when you're uncomfortable, that's where, you're straining, like there's pressure being put on you, but it's like good pressure. It's hard work that requires everything in you to, muster up the courage and the strength and the energy to accomplish these tasks. But when you do accomplish those tasks, light bulbs go off and you just feel an authentic confidence, and resiliency in yourself. So yeah, but when I left there, I was kind of afraid, but, my family kind of helped me out and stepped in, and they were like, yeah, we have an idea. One of the people that they went to church with was a store manager at Sprouts Farmers Market. And they're like, we feel like you could benefit from having structure. When you have structure, you can be on top of things. And, with continuing going to meetings and, working out every now and then. And I was just like, like my ego inside of me was just like deflating. And I was like,
yeah.
And I remember I was like, oh, okay, so I could be like an assistant store manager. And they were like, well, we need a grocery clerk. And I was just like, oh man. But I just, went with it. And, because I kind of already had humility from, the experience up to that point and, going to rehab. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I'm not, I have enough humility to just, come in here and work. And it ended up being a great experience just from teaching me to, work and not expect like a round of applause or crowds of 80,000 people clapping for me when I did my job. It was just like, I did my job. It felt good and a sense of respect for myself for doing my job, and just went home. And I think that lesson was valuable, and just serving people, even if they weren't necessarily nice to me or they made jokes about why I was big and how I was on the field, or, I saw girls in there that I used to talk to and they would see me in there and I would try to hide. And so it was just like the whole experience where I learned so many lessons in that time. And
man,
I'm grateful for that experience.
I can only imagine. And It's one of the things that we always say to newcomers is just take suggestions, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it too, where people, they think they're better. They're better than. They have a big, high-powered job. They make a ton of money. They're executives. They're professional athletes. And working at grocery stores beneath them. I mean, I drove for Uber for a while. I mean, and I can tell you, it was like the best thing I did. And there was no, I mean, there's nothing amazing about, I mean, there's, you're not having people clapping for you when you're driving around someone in an Uber, you know what I mean? And so for you, it's, I can't imagine how valuable that experience was for you, and just being able to put your ego aside and just, and just do your job.
Yeah, that was, that was incredible for me. And then it kind of spilled over to, when I got reinstated into the league, I got back to the Ravens, and part of my mind was like, I felt like I had a good perspective going in, but part of my mind was like, I'm going to get like an opportunity and, to bounce back. And I thought my opportunity was just going to come like immediately, but I got cut in training camp, and because they drafted two young tight ends who were good players. And so they cut me and put me on practice squad. And so that was just like another body blow to the ego right there. But that was necessary. And I was back on the practice squad, and it was like I could take from the Sprouts experience, like, I'm here to serve. Like, it's like this theme of service that God is trying to teach me. And like, I'm servicing, like, the Ravens defense at the time was the number one defense in the league. And I was like, if I can service them, if I can make plays against them, there's no one in this league that I can't make plays against. And then it got to the point where it was like routinely like making plays, like routinely going up top, and just like, and people were just like, well, like scout team players shouldn't be doing this. And it was just like, I felt good about it, but it was just like, I was like, okay, like, but it's about consistency at this point. Like, I can't, rest on what I did yesterday or carry what I did today into tomorrow. Like, I just have to be in the moment and be consistent and, continue to maintain a positive attitude about this experience. And, it went almost up like 2/3 of the season. And, I remember seeing like tight ends were getting hurt around the league, but no one called, or no one hit up my agent to try to get me. And I was just like, man, like, I just got to stick with it. But then there was one week where I was kind of down, and it was the week the Ravens were playing the Raiders. And I was like, man, I don't know if it's going to happen. Like, we were at Thanksgiving now. Like, it was like the Sunday after Thanksgiving. But I was like, all right. And the Saturday, like right before the game, I always had this like extra workout routine I would do on the field when everybody else went into the locker room to get their pads on and stuff, because I wasn't suiting up. And for me, consistently doing that was where like some of the Raiders coaches saw me working out and were just like, who is that guy? And basically like signed me just like randomly. And I feel like if I wasn't doing the work and doing the reps that I needed to be doing to even be seen in that moment, I wouldn't be sitting where I am today. And I feel like I learned that from recovery. And it was like doing the work there and, planting the seeds that, wouldn't grow immediately, but at some point, I feel like God would provide. His will would put me in a situation to where I could, improve my life and improve lives around me.
One of the things I was at a meeting last night talking with some friends, and one of the things we talked about was the long game, right? And prior to being in recovery, we want things now, right? I want things now, and I'm impatient. And however, what I've realized is that I do things now, and the results may or may not come later. But it's putting in the work now. It's doing the hard work now. And as they say, life is easy if you live it the hard way, and hard if you live it the easy way. So you do the hard things now. You have the hard conversations now. you put in the work now, and then it's the result that may come tomorrow or next week or next month or in 6 months, but it's not being attached to the result, right?
Right.
And so you weren't attached to any sort of a result. Therefore, you weren't getting beat down. You weren't disappointed. You were just doing your work.
Right. Yeah, it's like when, I feel like we want results, but it's like if somebody were to give us the result right when we wanted it, we would really even appreciate it like that. Mm-hmm. Because, through the process is where you learn the most and grow the most and, gain the things that really make your life, what it is and make it feel like it has purpose. Because then when the results come, it's like, oh, okay, like you reflect. Like I feel like my greatest gift now is like the ability to reflect on where I was and what it took to get to where I am now, not the things that I have now. And I'm just grateful for, recovery teaching me that and, just instilling that in my brain because I was hardwired to, I want things now. I want things to fall into my lap with me doing the least work possible. But I know that for me to enjoy my life, that's not a mindset that I can go forward with.
So how has your recovery journey enhanced your life?
It's allowed me to, have more intimate relationships with people like my family. I could be more honest with them. I don't have to, necessarily hide anything from them or lie anymore. I can tell the truth and, live with the results and, just experience the love that I have with them. It's allowed me to be a more reliable employee. I was never really reliable before I came into recovery. I was just very erratic. I would do some good things sometimes, but I wouldn't put in the work or really lay a true foundation to be consistent or to be someone that people can look at and be like, I trust that guy is going to be there giving it an honest effort day in and day out. And, it's helped me, on my music journey. I enjoy making music and it's allowed me to, create without fear, but also to, create something with substance and realize that everything that I do or that comes out of my mouth, it can be wholesome and beneficial or help someone in their situation. It's just helped me become a lot less self-centered, a lot more honest and open-minded to the idea that, me just serving myself and getting what I can get is not what's going to make life work. It's not what's going to make it meaningful to me. If I make it about other people and how I can, make the world around me better, that's where that best feeling really comes from. And I feel like that's where recovery has taught me the most.
Right. That's how you that's how you find fulfillment, right? Is being of service, being meaningful, helping another person. And prior to getting on this journey of recovery, what we think is that we need to lie, cheat, and steal, and we need people to clap for us in order to feel good, right? But that's not even fulfillment. It's so surface level, and it doesn't last for longer than a second, right? And if we really want true fulfillment, we have to be of service. We have to give it away to receive. We give to receive. Right. Okay. When did you realize that life was better being clean and sober and being on this journey? Because a lot of people, and you can probably relate to this. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to drink again. I'm never going to be able to do drugs again. And it's like, what am I going to do when I'm at a concert? What am I going to do when I'm at watching a football game? What am I going to do? Right? Because drinking and drugs were involved in all of the other activities.
Yeah. Because I was very jealous, very envious of people that could still do all those things. Like my first 6 months of recovery, because I wasn't working any steps. I was just, going to meetings and jetting. But I got a sponsor around the 6 month mark and started working the steps. And then once I started working the steps and just like, putting pen to paper, things
Right.
things started to open up. And it was just, from there, I remember times where I was just at Sprouts, like, I dropped this like gallon of apple cider that was in a glass jar on the floor on like the busiest day, like on a Saturday in the store, and just like complete like goofball move. And but I was like mopping it up and like picking the glass up, and people were just like looking at me crazy and laughing. But I remember at that time I was like, I feel like better about myself here at Sprouts. I'm making $11.62 an hour, and just going to meetings. I feel better here than I did when I was in the NFL making six figures a year, and people were envious of me and my position. Like I feel way better here in that moment where it was just like I looked like a fool or whatever, but I was there and I was like, I'm honestly here trying to do the best that I can with what I have and the situations that I'm in. And it was just a weird moment, but a light bulb went off. I was like, man, I feel way better here. And it's like the complete opposite of what most people would think, but it wasn't about what other people thought anymore. And so, yeah, I'll say like around the 6 month mark in recovery is where a turn started to change. Before that, the thinking and the behavior was, pretty stagnant. But from there, it was up from there.
Were you taking suggestions your first 6 months?
Not really. I would kind of go into the meeting, like maybe here and there, like I'll listen and be like, oh, that was good. Like, oh, they said, oh, that was real. I felt that before, but I wouldn't like go do the extra after that. Like go talk to them about that, how I felt about that, and get a phone number. So it was just like, go to the meeting, sit there, and it's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me check this box off, instead of like, what can I get out of this? Like, how can I like pick these people's brain or just get around them and just feel that fellowship and have that, nourish me. But I was still in that isolation mindset because I was still that guy that wanted to hide everything from everyone. I didn't want them to think about me, what I thought about myself. But it took me 6 months to realize in those meeting rooms that people weren't there to look at me that way or to judge me in that capacity. They were there because they knew how I felt. I always was that guy. I was like, nobody knows what I'm feeling or nobody understands me. But I was in a room of people that understood me for 6 months and wasn't seeking to build anything with them. But I think God was trying to help me realize more in that time how my willpower wasn't enough, how my idea of living and controlling things wasn't going to sustain me for where he was trying to take me.
So you say growth and comfort can't go together. What does that mean? Explain that to me. What does that mean to you?
I feel like growth and comfort are opposites because I feel like when you're in a comfortable place, in a comfortable zone, you want to stay there. You don't want to care. You don't really care about how much higher you can go because you want that good feeling, that safe space of security. Like as people, we want security and, just to, have clarity. Whereas, if you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you may not have that clarity, but it also requires you to trust. It requires you to trust, what God is doing in your life and believe in the plan that he has from you. And if you trust those uncomfortable situations, those are, what's going to challenge you to work your mind, work your spirit, and challenge it daily. Because when you challenge it daily, that builds strength. When it's, if you're lifting weights and you get stronger by lifting heavier, you get, and that's not a comfortable feeling. But if you're lifting light, it's like, okay, you can maintain, but you'll always be capable of more when you're when you're comfortable. But when you're uncomfortable and you continue to seek uncomfortable situations, that's where the magic is. That's where, because service, like I remember somebody, my friend James said, service, the real service is the one that's inconvenient, like not the one where like everything lines up with what you can do and it fits your schedule and it's something that you want to do. But true service is that one where it's like, dang, like I really got to do that, and you feel uncomfortable doing it. So I feel like the more that you put yourself in situations like that, you're just increasing your opportunities just to grow and impact the world in a better way.
I love that. True service is inconvenient.
Yeah, when he said that, I was just like, wow. That's so
You're like, but. Okay. So what's on the other side? And actually, so we're sitting here talking about being comfortable, and I'm thinking about Wim Hof, and Wim Hof, the Iceman. He talks about being uncomfortable, and he talks about how, we wear sweaters, we turn the heater on. We're all so used to being comfortable that we don't stress our immune systems out. We don't stress our bodies out. We're just so used to being comfortable. And so when you go in and you do an ice bath, you've got it. I mean, you're uncomfortable, clearly, right? And you just have to surrender and go with it. And as a result, you feel better. You have more mental clarity, more mental awareness, decreases inflammation, and your body functions better. And that's and stress is good. And too much stress is not good. However, we all need to be stressed out. Stress is what creates growth. When did you realize that you didn't respect yourself?
I don't think I had that kind of self-awareness until, probably when I got to rehab and started sharing for the first time. So that was September of 2017. And I started sharing, honestly, and, I was getting responses like, that's okay. Like, thank you for sharing that. And I was just like, wait a minute. Like, I really wasn't supposed to be hiding this all the time. And, all the time, all the opportunities that I could have had to speak up or to change or to really view myself like, okay, how can I take care of myself? I never gave myself those opportunities. So at that point, I was just like, wow, I really haven't been respecting myself. I haven't been loving myself. I haven't been caring for myself because I haven't allowed my true self to breathe or come to light in any form or fashion. Like anytime it wants to speak up, I just kind of just stuff it back down and don't give it an opportunity to speak. And so I would say around that time, once I kind of let a little bit of honesty in, it was just like, oh my gosh, like there's no way I can say that I love myself.
How are you looking for uncomfortable situations today? Going back to the comfort zone.
Today I am trying to get better. I still have like a fear of confrontation, like tough conversations.
Mm-hmm.
That is still a hurdle for me when it comes to relationships, especially creating boundaries when it comes to those relationships. And it's something that, I kind of like will beat around the bush a little bit. And, I'll talk to, people that I respect and close with in recovery about it. But it's like taking that step towards it. It's just always like, like I don't willingly go to that uncomfortable situation. And
right.
That's something that, the results from that may come quickly, may come slowly. But, I'm just trying to work at it. And then whenever, that breakthrough comes is when it comes. But that's something that I'm definitely trying to improve at.
Right. And it's thinking about what's on the other side. That's what we always have to look at. What's on the other side? Mm-hmm. You have the hard conversation now. Things are going to be easier on the other side. So you connected with Donnie Starkins, and you guys are. Tell me about Comeback Stories. You guys have created this show, and I want to hear what's that all about.
So yeah, Donnie and I connected via Instagram. Donnie has done a lot of work with some pretty great athletes on the mental side and the yoga side, and he saw my piece on Hard Knocks, which was like the first time that I was like really vulnerable about the things I went through, and he really connected to my story and reached out and wanted to work together, and so we started working together this past season, and he's been a great resource for me, and also has become like a really good friend for me. Like I was just in Arizona staying in his house for like 4 days last week. But in that time, we were just having these conversations, and they were great conversations. And he was like, "What do you think about doing a podcast?" And I was just like, "I have no idea how to do a podcast. I have zero idea." But something in me was just like, "Do it, like try it. Like it's not about you, it's about who it could affect, who it could impact." And so I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so we've just been, kind of picking people's brains about how to go about doing it, and creating a format. And now we're cranking out episodes, and the first episode came out, which was my comeback story. But we're just trying to reach out to guests in all walks of life. Like I have a friend of mine from high school that's on there, but there's also some household names on there. So we don't want to make it like athlete specific. We love having people in recovery on there, but we just think comeback stories can look and present themselves in so many different types of ways. So we want to have that represented in our show. But yeah, we're all about the comeback story and what happened in people's lives and how that plays a role in who they're becoming. They don't have to necessarily accept. They definitely have to accept their reality, but they don't have to stay there. They can do what's necessary to grow and change and walk into a life that they love and respect. So that's all we're trying to do.
So what would you say is the main purpose of the show?
I would say the purpose of the show is to inspire the listener to realize that they have a comeback story of their own. No matter how low their low is, they have the power, the tools, and the skills inside of them to rise above that and to keep rising in anything that they want to rise in. So it's just inspiring them to see people that they love and respect, seeing their story, but really teaching them that you have your own story and that you can respond to adversity in a strong way.
And how is producing this show going to help you?
It allows me to see other people's perspective, see how they approach life. I don't think I know very much in the grand scheme of things, and I am okay with that because that allows me to learn from people. I'm learning sitting here with you right here today. So it's just allowing other people's experience to, come into my world and realizing that I'm so much more alike these people than I ever would have imagined. And just feeling that connection and realizing that we all, our one common thing that we share is adversity, and we have to overcome that. So if we can lean on somebody else or pick up something from somebody else to help us in our journey or vice versa, that's all it's about.
So moving on. Okay. So on another note, how do you take care of yourself today?
For me, the big things for me are prayer and meditation. First thing when I wake up, and last thing that I do in my day.
Nice.
Definitely journaling has been a key for me. I didn't realize how profound writing things on paper is for me, and just letting everything out. I have some daily devotional recovery readings that I like to, read those and write, how I'm feeling on that for the day. But those are my things. I love to read. creating music does something for me in my soul, making beats, writing lyrics. Like these are things that fill me up because, in the profession that I'm in and the things that are being, asked of me and demanded from me, it takes a lot from me physically, energetically, emotionally. But these things and just the recovery day to day and my creative habits are what fill me up and allow me to continue to be consistent.
What kind of music do you create?
I rap is like my thing, but I sing a little bit. But I feel like my beats and just like vibe is inspired by a million different genres because I listen to pretty much everything. I don't try to limit myself to just rap music. I feel like there's so much good music out there.
Mm-hmm. So now we're in the off season. What are you going to do for the next few months before you start practicing and gearing up for next season?
I took 3 weeks off from training, and those 3 weeks have sadly come to an end very fast.
Okay.
So I'm back to working out, and gonna progress into working out and running and doing football drills over these next couple weeks. But I mean, it's also a time for me to read a lot, to meditate a lot, to be still, to go to meetings as much as I want to. So this time is a great time for me to continue to progress, spiritually, mentally, in my recovery, first and foremost, because, the minute I start thinking that these things that I have in my life, these opportunities I have in my life are more important than the foundation, which is recovery, that's where I start to slip. So this is always a good time for me to, keep the main things, and, to slowly get myself back into shape and not feel like it's a competition or anything. It's just the path in which I get back into my shape and the mindset to get ready to play again is, I let that play itself out.
Right.
But I just handle it and try to control things that I can control.
So we're coming up on the end of the show here. So looking back, what do you want people to have heard, or what message do you want people to take away from our conversation today?
I would definitely say, the best thing that you can do is surrender the outcomes and the results of things. Of course, we have visions and goals that we want to work towards, but I would just say be okay with putting one foot in front of the other, and just immersing yourself in the process and making it less about what you can gain, but more about what you can give to those around you. And, your journey's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to look like somebody else's recovery or somebody else's career, but just find the simple joys and the gratitude in your journey, how far you've come, how much better you are than a day ago, a month ago, a year ago. And, just keep moving forward because, God isn't trying to keep you where you are or have you feeling what you're feeling forever. There's better for you on the other side, like you said, and just trust that. Don't be caught up in the future because worrying won't fix anything or make anything easier that you have to do. And accept your past. Don't allow it to dictate who you're going to be going forward.
Be present and focus on the journey.
Yes.
And don't be attached to the results, because the journey is perfect. And as long as we're not attached to the result and we just focus on the journey, life is good.
Right. I've had results and been miserable, so just take that.
Right. How can people find out more about you? How can they follow you? How can they find out more about comeback stories?
If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram. It's Rackwall, RACKKWALL. Twitter is rackwall83. The Darren Waller Foundation website is darrenwaller.org. From there, you can find out how to donate and see our vision for what we're trying to do. The Comeback Stories Show, you can follow on Instagram at Comeback Stories Show. And that'll take you to whatever you need to do. You can go to subscribe to comeback.com to find our first episode. It'll take you right to Apple Podcasts page as well. We're also on Spotify and going to be on all platforms soon.
Awesome. Well, Darren, it was so awesome getting to talk to you. I learned a lot about you today. A lot of what you said resonates with me, and I can relate. Really enjoyed it. So Rackwall, I think I wrote Rackwell. Rackwall, RACKKWELL, Instagram, DarrenWaller.org, at Comeback Stories Show. And thanks so much again, Darren, and thanks everybody. I will see you next time.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.